Here we are in the cockpit of a Canadair Challenger CL600 type airplane in Lexington, Kentucky at their Bluegrass Airport to KLEX. What we're going to do is we're going to simulate the crash of Comair Flight 5191 that attempted to take off on the wrong runway and crashed. What I want to do before we go too much further is to go ahead and pull us outside to orient us relative to where we are on the airport. Is that Microsoft Flight Sim has the capacity of going back in time. This is, in fact, a simulated August 27th, 2006 at 6:05 a.m. That's when the crash occurred. Back then, this was the layout of KLEX. Runway 26 is right here. This is the short general aviation runway. Runway 22 is here. This is their main runway. X is where the airplane is sitting right now. What would have happened is they would have come out of the terminal, which is right over here, come down taxiway Alpha, and they were cleared to runway 22. So they should have carried on across runway 26 and lined up on 22. What in fact happened was that rather than coming across 26, they turned and lined up on 26. That was the fatal error. So what I'll do now is I'll pop us over to a tower view. The tower sits right over here. And the view from the tower is showing the threshold ends of 26 and 22 in line of sight. So if a controller just glanced up at an airplane sitting, for instance, on 26, that controller might have mistaken it for being on 22, especially this time of day. It was duskish. We were still under nighttime rules. So with that observation, I also wanted to show that they in fact took out runway 26. They bulldozed it. They simply took this runway out and moved it over on the far side of the field. As far as Lexington, Kentucky Bluegrass Airport was concerned, this accident simply was not going to happen again. So we're going to pop back in the cockpit here. And what I'm going to do is unpause the sim and taxi us around on Alpha just as would occurred on that morning at 6:05 a.m. So here's the pilot's view, and if I can stay on the yellow line, what would have happened is they would have simply made a left turn on Alpha, and they were cleared to runway 22. So what they should have done is carried on across runway 26, which is coming up right here, onto runway 22, which is out ahead of us. But in fact, they turned onto runway 26. And that was the fatal error. This is the fatal turn right here. So once we get lined up, what I want to do is to show you another situation that the crew should have seen. I'll pop out the navigational display here and get a little better look at it. What crews do is they set their heading bug on the runway that they've been cleared to take off from. In this case, they have the heading bug set on 220. So clearly the crew realized that they were cleared to take off on runway 22. The airplane is on a heading of 262, clearly on runway 26. So this navigational display, this HSI, is showing that the airplane is on runway 26, but the crew knew that they were supposed to be taken off on 22. What I also wanted to show you is the primary flight display. Is that over here we have the airspeed tape. This is a very typical looking display that you'll see in modern airplanes. If this was a real PFD or a fully functional PFD, what we'd have is we would have the V speeds right down below this. And in this case, the V speeds were V1 was 137, VR was 142, V2 was 145. V1, as the pilots know, are what I call the fly or die speed, is that once you're faster than a V1, or in this case 137, there's not enough runway left to stop. You have to fly. You have no choice. You will not be able to stop on the remaining runway. VR was 142, V2 was 145. That's the engine out speed. So as the airplane accelerates down the runway, keep an eye on the airspeed tape over here and see where the runway is, or see where the airplane is on the runway relative to the airspeeds. So we'll pop this back in, unpause the sim, and these guys were cleared to take off a bit on runway 22, which is over there. But they're on runway 26. So the first officer was flying the airplane. So this is the captain's view. So the first thing would have happened is they would have pushed up power. and probably gotten themselves back on the center line just a little bit here. But the first call would have been from the captain, thrust set. As we see here, we see runway 422 coming up ahead of us, and this is the runway we should have been on, and we are crossing that runway. So as we continue on out, 80 knots and 100 knots. As we continue on down the runway, we see there's 120, and here comes 137, V1, VR, and we're right at the end of the runway. Bam, they rotated, they stalled the airplane. I think they picked up a little dirt from a ditch and ended up running into a tree. And that's what the view would have been like from the front windshield as the airplane careened off the runway. Could they have saved it? I don't know. If they would have just relaxed and stayed in ground effect, they might have been able to accelerate to get enough airspeed to clear the terrain, clear the obstacles. I don't know. But that's what it would have looked like from the cockpit of Flight 519.